Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap up for Friday, September 27th, 2019, the WNW 402. And, there's a lot went on this week with the decision to go ahead for an impeachment inquiry of President Donald Trump. But before we start, I want you to back up and give you an idea of what this is really all about. And you can look no further than the speech that Donald Trump had at the UN. Here's his speech, the UN speech, and this is just a small part of it. You should sit and listen to it. It was a barn burner. It was fabulous. But you never heard a president talk this way before. And he says the future does not belong to the globalists. That is laying down the gauntlet, folks. He's saying this to a room of globalists. The future belongs to patriots, he said. The future belongs to sovereign and independent nations who protect their citizens, respect their neighbors, and honor the differences that make each country special and unique. He's saying you're not going to break up America. That's what the Democrats are doing. They're Marxist, socialist, globalist, Satanists, New World Order. They're selling out America at every turn. They want open borders. They don't want any ICE. They want to raise your taxes. They want you to stop eating meat. They want to give medical benefits to illegal aliens. The crazy never stops in the Democrat Party. That's what this is about. They failed with the Mueller investigation. That was the insurance policy. They failed. And just like I told you at the beginning of that whole mess, and I said it a couple of times, they made it up. They made it up. They made it up. They completely made it up. And this thing with Donald Trump in this 30-minute phone call with the new president, President Zelensky, in Ukraine. Listen, the Justice Department's already weighed in. People like Joe DeGeneva, who's a former federal prosecutor and has a long legal history, says it didn't break any laws. There was no quid pro quo. That's, I give you this and you give me this. Joe Biden can't say that. Joe Biden said, I'm going to hold up $1 billion unless you fire this prosecutor who's corrupt. Get somebody solid. He wasn't corrupt. He wasn't charged or adjudicated. There was no case against him. As a matter of fact, the lawyers for Burisma, who are American lawyers, went over to Ukraine for the new guy, Lutsenko, the new guy that replaced Viktor Shokin, who they falsely claimed was corrupt. And they said, yeah, that's not true. He's not corrupt. That's a lie. And this is what the papers in the investigation of this case say from Ukraine. Also, the Ukrainians are the ones, this is according to John Solomon at The Hill, incidentally. So this is where I'm getting this from. John Solomon, The Hill. I'm going to credit him with this story. He said, it was the Ukrainians that were trying to contact the Americans as early as, last summer. And they couldn't get an audience with anybody. We're talking about the summer of 2018. This is Jeff Sessions' land. He was fired in November of 2018, the day after the midterm elections. They want nothing to do with this. They couldn't get, I don't know if it was actually Jeff Sessions, but they couldn't get anybody in the Justice Department. They even hired an American lawyer, a former prosecutor, to go try to talk to the Justice Department and say, hey, listen, this happened in this 2016 election, and we don't like what happened. Here's another thing that happened in that phone call, just so you know. The President Trump, was asking about CrowdStrike. That is a Ukrainian company, and George Soros has some tentacles around this CrowdStrike. Remember CrowdStrike? Let me remind you, this whole thing started with the Russians hacked the DNC servers. And the FBI go to the Democratic National Committee and say, we'd like to see your servers. And no. And Comey testified to this. Yeah, we asked, they wouldn't give it to us. Really? I think that's bizarre. I mean, could you imagine the FBI coming to USA Watchdog and say, "Hey, listen, you have things on your computer that have profound national security interests, and we need to look at them." And I would say to them, "Oh yeah, no, I'm going to have a third party take a look at this, and I'll get back with you." And that's what happened, folks. They never looked at the DNC servers for the hack, and now we're all the way back down around to Seth Rich. Was that downloaded by a guy by the name of Seth Rich who was murdered? And they never did figure out who killed him. Was that a download from the servers or from something like this, or was that a external hard drive, or were those emails, embarrassing emails, true emails, were they downloaded by Seth Rich, and they weren't hacked? because Trump was asking about CrowdStrike. So therefore, he wanted to find out about how this whole scam with the 2016 election, where they claimed that the Russians hacked the DNC, which I don't think they did. He was asking about that, and he also said that was the favor he was asking for. He said, give me a favor. He's trying to figure out what happened in the 2016 election. And then he asked about Biden. He says he's bragging at the Council on, he was actually at the Council on Foreign Relations, bragging about getting a prosecutor fired. Now, that was a quid pro quo. That was, we have $1 billion for aid for you, loan guarantees, and you got to get rid of this prosecutor, and you have 6 hours, and son of a beep, hey, they fired the prosecutor to get somebody solid. They are alleging that this guy was corrupt. He was not. There was no charges. There was no adjudication. As a matter of fact, the lawyers for Burisma that later met with the new prosecutor, it was Victor Shokin was the old prosecutor. The new prosecutor was Lutsenko, who's now stepping down. He also says Hunter Biden did nothing wrong in terms of him working for Burisma. Yeah, but his daddy may have. But at any rate, the long and short of it is that he was talked to by the lawyers, and this is in the record. This is according to John Solomon. Again, this is in the record that he wasn't corrupt. So that lie that I got repeated over and over again on the mainstream media, total lie that the prosecutor was corrupt. Everybody in Europe wanted to get rid of him. That he wasn't corrupt. That was a lie. And so, this whole thing is centering around, what happened with Ukraine, and they were part of the 2016 election meddling, but it sure looks like it was the Democrats. There was a quid pro quo, and it looks like the leading Democrat candidate, Joe Biden, was involved in it. You do this, and we'll give you that. That's quid pro quo. That's what it looks like. And also this whistleblower who made up this report, this is also according to John Solomon, largely off of news reports. He didn't have access to the president. The president's saying that whoever did is a spy, and they should be. He's hinting at prosecution for them. They made it up. Here we are again. They made it up. And Pelosi is taking the political risk of a lifetime, and I want to ask why. Why do they feel they have to take this kind of a risk on another bogus made-up story, which is going to have tons of holes punched in it like Swiss cheese? Why? They say they have the votes for impeachment. They only need 50%, more than 50%, more than half. You need a majority. So she says she has it, although she hasn't taken a vote. And then, the impeachment, you're tried in the Senate. Bill Clinton was impeached in the House, but yet he was acquitted in the Senate. So they did not remove Bill Clinton from office. I don't think they'll remove Donald Trump from office. I really don't. But I think what they're trying to do is dirty him up. Why are they doing this? They can't get a special prosecutor. That's not going to happen. Not with Bill Barr. That's not going to happen. So they're not going to get that. So, and then they look like that they have made this up. And let me tell you why I say that. Hold on. Here we go. Let me just bring this out here. Here is, and I just want to bring this out. He had help. Former CIA NSA official questions too convenient and too perfect whistleblower report. Former CIA analyst and National Security Council NSC official Fred Feltz has provided his take on the whole thing via Twitter. Wow, he must think that this is pretty much an awful framing of an honest man again. That's Trump. What did the House and Senate Intel Committee Dem members and staff know about it, and when? Did they help orchestrate this complaint? And I think the answer is yes. The Democrats helped orchestrate this complaint. That's what he's pointing to. My view is that this whistleblower complaint is too convenient and too perfect to come from a typical whistleblower. Which is, again, back to my premise, which is the premise I had for the whole Russia collusion. They made it up. It was a counterterrorism thing that led, according to Kevin Shipp, this former CIA officer and whistleblower, all the way to the White House. It has to be. It's a counterintelligence operation ordered by the president. And so here we have yet another deal. This wasn't ordered by Obama, but they made it up. That's what it's looking like. They made it up. and Nancy Pelosi wants to get out there and we're gonna have an inquiry and I've got the votes already and oh boy, wow. If you look at the polling on this, of course, most of the polls are phony, and they slant the polls and they do. But listen, all the polls are saying people don't want this. This is really going to be something where there's enough honest reporters like John Solomon. There's enough people out there, enough, the Breitbart, InfoWars, USA Watchdog, plenty of other independent journalists, Zero Hedge, which I love. There are a lot of people, they're not going to let this stand. This is not going to hold water. But it's desperate. It just tells me that they're completely desperate. And my question is, why? Why are they this darn desperate? Is it because that they think they're going to take a big hit with this FISA document release and people are going to go to jail over it? I know the Jeffrey Epstein thing is, on the back burner. But if you were William Barr, you would be saying, listen, the most important thing is not the sex offender. We can do that later. We can do that in your second term. The most important thing is this failed seditious act, this failed overthrow of the American government. Why? Because he hates Donald Trump, hates the globalists. This is the globalists versus the patriots. And that way in every nation, Britain, Italy, France, the U.S., everywhere. Eastern Europe, tons of the Ukraine. This is the patriots versus the evil globalists, the satanic New World Order weasels that want just a very small top of the population to have everything, and everybody else could be depopulated or bankrupted. Is that the reason why? Is it the reason why that that their leading candidate Joe Biden is going to go down in flames over this? I think he is. I think ultimately he is. I mean, we are 13 months away from a election, about a little more than 13. Can he hang in there? He's not going to be able to go on Jimmy Kimmel and talk about his stupid stories about how he did nothing wrong and that Donald Trump should be impeached. He's not going to be able to do that forever. That's my question: is why? Are they, listen, if you take a look at what happened with these debates, which is a one-upsmanship of crazy, or if you look at the 7-hour climate change town hall that CNN put on, which revealed every crazy idea that the Democrats want to have that will be way more expensive and make your life terrible. Even Wall Street's going against these guys, the Democrats. I mean, they're scared to death Elizabeth Warren may be the candidate and not Joe Biden. But Joe Biden's just as nutty. He signed on to the Green New Deal. They all love abortion. They want medical benefits for illegal aliens. They want sanctuary cities. They want to put the citizen of a foreign country above the citizens of America. They don't want a wall. They want to abolish ICE. They want to give universal income, basic income to people. Did I tell you they want to give medical benefits to illegal aliens? I mean, this is nuts. And I think that ain't polling well. I think what I think their biggest fear is in the Republicans. Their biggest fear is independence, followed closely by members of their own party that are going, whew, this is way too crazy for me. This doesn't sound like a world I want to live in. And I wonder about that. A friend of mine worked on the polls, worked actually on election day for the NC 9 and 3. They had open House seats there where Trump went down east here in North Carolina and put a big, a show on, a big town hall, a rally, and they won. Both of them won. He was at one of the seats, I think in North Carolina 3 or 9, one of the two. I can't remember where. It's the one on the coast. Might be 9. Anyway, he said, I was there, checking people in, whatever. He says, do you know how many people came there with elderly parents that couldn't talk? They didn't know their name. They had to have somebody go in and vote with them. I said, Democrats. He goes, yeah, they were bringing people in, just dragging people in to vote. My premise is they have to cheat. Nobody wants to vote for their policies, so they have to cheat or get illegal aliens to vote. The other thing was, he said, here's another thing that was kind of weird. And he's just a volunteer, right? He's taking people in. He says, about 30 different people, I mean, of all colors, all ages, both sexes, came in, 30 different people at his desk and said, I want to change my party affiliation from what to what, from Democrat to Republican or Democrat to Independent. They were leaving the Democrat Party. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Then I see this on television, and this is a screenshot from CNN. My people I used to work with. Democratic stronghold in Minnesota turning to Trump. This is a screenshot from CNN. That pretty much says it all. And I'm wondering, is this why the Democrats are desperate? Are they desperate because they know they're losing their base with, Crazyville, Beto? Yes, we will take your AR-15. Him. Sanders, Mr. Communist, Mr. I want to abort all the babies around the world. That's Bernie Sanders. Elizabeth Warren, I want to take over all the businesses. Miss Fascist Elizabeth Warren, Wall Street hates her. You have Joe Biden, who's Mr. Corrupt, and his family's cashing in. They can't explain how he got $50,000 a month out of Burisma when he's supposed to be a consultant for the oil and gas industry and doesn't know anything about it. He could be a consultant for Narconon, Hunter Biden. He also got $1.5 billion, his company, out of China by riding on Air Force Two. That's a nice gig. They're gonna have to. I don't know what the deal is. But people are saying they want to take out Joe Biden. I'm not so sure they do. I really am not so sure they do. He may be the best chance they have, which isn't much of a chance against Donald Trump. But what they are trying to do is dirty up Donald Trump. They'd love to impeach him. I don't think they can. They're not going to get a special counsel, so they're going to have to do the dirty work themselves. And I have this feeling it's going to blow up in the face. Already the facts show that they're crazy. Nuts. I mean, they're just, well, we say it and you should believe us. Yeah, but that's not a fact. Yeah, but we think he's ruined his office. He's committed treason. He's done high crimes and misdemeanors. Yeah, but no, he hasn't. The Department of Justice and the ethical people in the DOJ have all said, no, he didn't do anything wrong. Even the Director of National Intelligence, who Adam Schiff tried to get you, well, you think he should be investigated? No, I don't think he should be investigated. That's not what my job is. He says it wasn't an emergency, no law. We had a bunch of people look at this. No laws were broken. This was not him violating the oath of his office. That's what they want to say. And then they want to say there's a cover-up. Like Watergate. Watergate was a petty break-in, but the big deal with Nixon was it was a cover-up. Listen, compared to what happened with this treason, sedition with the FBI, DOJ, the White House and everybody in it, the State Department, the CIA, the Director of National Intelligence, the NSA, a foreign power, spies inside the Trump campaign, spies inside the Trump White House from the FBI, spies outside the country working against Donald Trump. Listen, whoa. I mean, that is off the charts. Every Democrat should be sending an apology letter to the Nixon family for painting him a criminal. When he left, I'm not a crook. You know what? He wasn't. He wasn't a crook. There was not a national security issue and no money changed hands. He was not a crook. Shouldn't have done the break-in because he was paranoid because they robbed him in the election with Kennedy, but he wasn't a crook. But this thing, what's going on now is absolutely unbelievable. Oh, the Democrats worried that they're going to lose. They're going to lose most of the middle and many of their same voters. Black people are leaving. You've got, Jew people, Jew exit is what they call it, Blexit, black people exiting the Democrat Party. A lot of people are leaving for the crazy, because of the crazy. They don't have any ideas. They don't have any ideas. And then we have Donald Trump, and here we go. He's warning again that the stock market would crash if he's impeached. Listen, if they start this deal and we do get a market crash, he's going to blame it on the Fed and the Dems. And he may have very good reason to blame it on the Fed, and he may have some pretty good reasons to blame it on the Dem. What he inherited when he came into office was an absolute mess with, $41 trillion of overt and covert debt, with the federal overt debt at $20 trillion and the $21 trillion missing dollars that nobody seems to find, that's now a national security issue. But how is the economy doing? Listen, it's really uneven. And I'm always constantly trying to make sure I have an accurate picture of the economy. Here's Matt. Retail store closures will continue to rip through the U.S. This is a Goldman Sachs research papers on Yahoo Finance. Retail store closings number to reach 12,000 by the year end. That's not growth. And then here we have pending home sales rebound in August. The second highest level since 2018, 2.5% higher than a year ago. The economy is very uneven. And listen, do I think Donald Trump has done a great job? Yeah, I'll say it again. We'd be in a greater depression, if it wasn't for Donald Trump. If we'd be in the third year of the Hillary Clinton, presidency, there'd be gulags popping up all over the place. You'd have no rights. You would have no gun laws. We might be in a full-blown civil war, and the economy would be in the tank. But because of Donald Trump, we're not. He put this off. I don't know how long he put off. There's a lot of debt out there, and there's a lot of problems out there. And one of the things that you're not seeing on Fox Business or CNBC or CNN or anything, the problem in the repo market. The repo market is repurchase. That's what repo, not they don't take it back, but it's in the repurchase agreement market, which is funding for banks overnight. And it's oversubscribed as a funding shortage keeps getting worse. Now, not only is this is in the story Zero Hedge, not only is the liquidity shortage getting worse, in other words, a shortage of dollars, shortage of ways to keep companies afloat, but the more liquidity the Fed provides via repos, the more liquidity primary dealers indicate they need. It means they're having trouble staying afloat. They need to borrow this money every night and pay it back, borrow it every night, pay it back. Banks confirm that their dollar shortage is far, far worse than anyone expected. Now, I have some questions about all this. This has been going on for a while. I called Rob Kirby about this, almost 2 weeks ago, and said, "Hey, listen, you did repos and derivatives, and this guy's got a lot of experience, Rob Kirby. He's not just an expert on gold, not just a macroeconomic analyst, but he was at the cutting edge of the derivative market when it first started." Rob Kirby, smart guy. Can't say enough good things about him. And I asked him about it. He said, "Yeah, this is about a week and a half ago." And he says, listen, if it goes on for a few days, it's okay. I've seen rates spike up to 10% for overnight money. Some institutions getting a little bit of trouble. But, at the end of the year, at the turn and things like that, the end of the fiscal year is coming up in, October 1st, right, for the U.S. And at the end of the year, some of that stuff happens. Then he says, but if this keeps going on for a week or two, that might be a different story. And I reserve the right to change my mind. Well, we're heading into our third week. And, we've had a lot of big things that happened that nobody talked anything about. You know what he brought up? What I brought up about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, the last 1 or 2 weeks ago, the debt downgrade of Moody's for Ford debt being downgraded to junk. Now Fitch and S&P still have it as investment grade, but Moody's downgraded it. And if 2 of the 3 rating agencies say it's investment grade and sold, it's investment grade, but that's a problem. That's a big step out there. That's not just some small company where they downgraded the debt. This is Ford Motor Company. And there's all kinds of reverberations that could be hitting for that. But is the Federal Reserve, taking over the repo market? This is supposed to be a private market where they trade, where the collateral is treasury bonds, right? And they put up the collateral. You make a 2% or so. That's what the federal funds rate is, 1.752. You loan money overnight. You make a couple of percent. You get your money back the next day. It's easy money, and that's what happened with the fallout the last time, is they were using mortgage-backed securities, CDOs, and then they realized that that collateral was bad. Well, now they're using Treasury bonds, and now the Treasury is in there. Now the Fed is in there, and is this a new wave of QE? Is the economy so bad that this is a new wave of QE? Have they nationalized the repo market? Is this permanent QE? Martin Armstrong also says, hey, problem. This has been going on for a while. This is a problem, and liquidity is drying up, and dollars are short, and the Fed is supplying them, and this is a problem. This is Martin Armstrong at Armstrong Economics, who's been a guest here many times. So, I'm just warning you that this could be a problem, an underlying problem, and of course, now Donald Trump has set up the DNC, Nancy Pelosi, and the Fed for the primary reason why this is going on. The Fed, raised rates all this time. They shouldn't have done that. They should have been slowly, with all the debt that we have, raising these rates. But anyway, I wanted to get one last thing. This is yet another one of their many policies. And I'm going to tell you that this is a little microcosm here in North Carolina, but it's in everywhere across the country. And this is a headline here: North Carolina jails free hundreds of illegal immigrant criminals wanted by feds. This is Judicial Watch. This is a couple of weeks ago, and I have an accompanying also story in the newspaper. New federal stats reveal the problem is statewide. Nearly 500 offenders with Immigration and Customs Enforcement ICE detainers have been discharged into communities throughout the Tar Heel State this fiscal year. Fiscal year ends just like everybody else's does at the end of September. And so, this is probably amplified all over the country. What they did in the last election was they were really clever, they sneaky. They bust people in. they concentrated on sheriff's races in the three biggest cities, in the three biggest counties in North Carolina. Guilford, that's where I am. They won. They have a crazy Democrat sheriff that will not hold people for ICE detainers. They have Mecklenburg, which is Charlotte, and then they have Raleigh-Durham area, the sheriff in that county, also letting criminal aliens out on the street here in North Carolina. And of course, Roy Cooper, the governor, vetoed a bill that would force sheriffs to hold people on ICE detainers. Roy Cooper, the Democrat crazy governor, who also vetoed a bill that would tell doctors to save a baby's life if she made it out of the womb, made it out of an abortion, he or she made it out of an abortion alive, that you had to protect that child's life. No, he vetoed that bill too. Baby killing Roy Cooper vetoed that bill, and also vetoed a bill to put the rights and the health and welfare of criminal aliens above the citizens of North Carolina. And that's happening all over the country, folks. So here's our crazy little communist newspaper. I give them about 2 years to make it. They don't have hardly any cars for sale in here anymore. The classified ads are dribbled down to nothing. The sharp thing here, in case you missed it, fall is here. Oh, thank you, News and Record. Here's the story they put in a little section on the second page, which should have been the headline. This is in the county next door, a fairly populated county. And here, let me get this in here for you. I have it really. There we go. Here, let's get in here. Oh, yeah, here we go. Yeah, human trafficking. There we go. Let me get it. Let me get it. There we go. Human trafficking. 24 charged in Alamance investigation. More than 24 people were charged in human trafficking investigation and conducted by the Alamance Sheriff's Department. That wasn't a front page story here. Human trafficking in North Carolina, in the county next to Guilford, which is where the Greensboro News and Communist Fish Raft is from. No, but they can say they covered it. They covered it. And this is how the evil mainstream press, who is helping the Democrats, the propaganda press, that's all we have. I don't care who it is. I don't believe anything in the New York Times, the Washington Post, the LA Times, ABC, NBC, CBS, some sections of Fox, don't believe them either. Shepard Smith, Judge Napolitano. I don't believe in CNN, MSNBC. I don't believe, Mika and Joe and that junk. I don't believe any of these. These people are propagandists. They will omit and they will lie. They're not the press. So don't believe them. They have this, more people now want to see Donald Trump, they want to see him impeached. Really? According to who? Beware of the phony polls. Beware of the fake news. Donald Trump said this, he had a meeting about a trade deal in Japan. Incidentally, with Japan, they're going to buy, $7 billion worth of product, grain, pork, beef. They're going to buy everything, right? So now we have a trade deal that's on the table for Canada and Mexico, our two biggest trading partners, the USMCA, which the House hasn't passed, and I don't know if they will. They also blocked China out in that bill, where they can't, have shell companies in Mexico and in Canada, and then send stuff into America without any tariff. I believe that's blocked out. That's blocked out. I think that's already blocked out. But that certainly is blocked out in the USMCA. And then you have Donald Trump talking about a trade deal with Japan, which is good. And now you have China. They've decided they're going to buy pork and they're going to buy grains from the U.S. I told you that they're going to have a hard time sourcing that. Otherwise, people would starve. And now they find themselves odd-man out, China. So I don't know if the Democrats are going to, pass USMCA. They ought to. There's a lot of good stuff in there for everybody in America. Or maybe they don't want to give Donald Trump a win. But China, I told you that China is going to have a hard time sourcing grain and hogs. They're big on hogs. They had their herd over there decimated, I'm sorry to say, with some disease, and corn and beans. And they were going to have a hard time sourcing that, or their people might starve. There are 1.4 billion people in China. And so all this whole scare about trade is really just a scare about nothing. The real scare is the debt. The real scare are the crazy Democrats that want to turn the country into a socialist, communist, Marxist, globalist, satanic, New World Order pig pen where only the very top get all the good stuff, and we are the deplorable plebes who will be put in camps and disarmed, and you will do what we say to do when we say to do it. There's no voting. There's no constitution. There's no gun rights, First Amendment rights, religious rights. You don't get rights in our world. That's what Donald Trump was doing in this right here with the UN speech. You should look at the whole speech. This is just I thought it was the line. The future does not belong to globalists. The future belongs to patriots. You got to ask yourself why the Democrats are this panicked, this desperate, doing this kind of crazy stuff. They're just going to lie and then say, no. Our lies are the truth. I mean, that's what they're doing. And you got to wonder what's coming down the pipe and how bad this is. We're not even into, the 12-month election zone here. We're outside, we're 13 and a half months away from the 2020 election. Whew, man, things are going to get ugly. And I want you not to fear. I want you to be informed. I pray that I can explain this crazy, car full of monkeys throwing dirt and puking on each other. I pray that I can explain this to you. But all I can say is it's the patriots versus the globalists. And once again, the Democrats and the deep state are making it up. Don't fall for it. Fear not. Prepare yourself mentally, physically, above all spiritually. Fear not. God the Father, Son, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit are firmly in charge. I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your donations. Thank you for supporting USAWatchdog.com. And remember, fear not. Evil wants you to be afraid. Don't be.